Hello, everybody. Welcome to our monthly hangout. I'm Jimmy Lanley with Bright Ideas Press, and I'm here with Tyler Hogan, the president of the company and the author of both Wonder Maps and North Star Geography. Today, he's going to be discussing one of his most favorite topics, and that is geography. Right before we hit play, we were talking about the hashtag geography rocks, and Tyler said, yeah, everybody knows it. So geography is his passion. Tyler, tell us what got you into a love of geography, and tell us why everybody should be as excited about it as you are.
Well, the thing that got me into geography was mostly my mother. She gave me a deep love of geography as she was homeschooling us. We were always opening up atlases and looking up places that we heard about on the news. We had historical atlases, there were maps on the wall. Every subject that we studied, there was a geography tie-in. We had edible geography, it was hands-on, it was the theme that connected pretty much all of our different areas of study, whether it was history or science or literature or even math. There was always a geography component to it. And that's one of the reasons why I love it so much, is because I see it everywhere. And it's just such a neat field of study because it touches on pretty much every interest you might have, because everything happens somewhere. And I think that other people should be just as interested in it because you can't avoid it. Everything happens somewhere, and it's neat to see how space impacts people, how a sense of region and culture and all of these different elements, whether it's in physical geography or cultural and human or political geography, how they all interact. It's just such a fascinating field of study. But the flip side is, if you're not into it, you can sometimes really embarrass yourself if you don't have even just some rudimentary geography skills. As an example, I once had to get my phone repaired because it had been dropped and was having some problems. And so I picked up my landline and I called my phone company, which will remain nameless, and asked, so where's the nearest repair center? And I'm in Delaware. Where can I go to get my phone fixed? And the poor rep on the other end of the line, you could just hear the wheels turning in his head as he started typing and trying to figure out what the nearest center was. And after a minute, he said, well, I got somewhere in Boston. Will that work for you? I was like, well, no, not really. I mean, that's a solid 8 hours away. Do you have anything closer to me? I mean, Delaware's a good deal, southwest of Boston. So he started typing again, and you could tell he was getting a little bit flustered. And he said, I have somewhere in Connecticut. Is that any closer? Like, you're going in the right direction, but really, I was hoping for somewhere in my own state, if that's even possible. I mean, Delaware is such a small state that I'm never shocked if we don't have somewhere I can go. And there's just this silence on the other end of the line as he said, so you mean Delaware is a state? It's like, yes, it is. And then he said, I'm so sorry, I'm just terrible at geometry. Well, that may be too. I'll have to take your word for it on that. But I did
I've
end up
heard
getting
that
my
story
phone
so many
fixed.
times, and it still makes me laugh because it's so absurd.
I I mean, it would be just an absurd story, but it actually happened to me. I felt so bad for the guy. The the poor gentleman, just if he had known, the 50 states and where they are, even approximately, he could have done a much better job and not embarrassed himself or his company for that matter.
So
And
we don't want our kids to end up like this call.
we don't want our kids to end up like
So,
that.
so what are the essential skills everyone needs to be geography literate?
I would say that the essential skills are things like knowing how to read and use maps and atlases, and geography tools like learning how to use GPS or Google Maps, and maybe a compass. I mean, a compass, you may not necessarily need to know how to work an old-fashioned magnetic one unless you are out in the woods somewhere, but just the understanding of how it works and what compass points mean and how to look at them on a map and know what to do with them, that's still an important skill, even if you've gone completely digital. So, and then the other side of that is how do you apply that knowledge? And if you know how to navigate, how to plan your course, how to travel safely and effectively, those are the skills that you really absolutely have to have.
All right, so how do we go about teaching our children these skills?
Well, there's 3 steps that you can use. The first is you have to teach. There's a little bit of knowledge that you just have to impart about different kinds of maps. What's the difference between an outline map and a reference map? What's the topographical map? How do you read that? Historical maps and things like that. Learning how to read and use a legend or a key. Understanding latitude and longitude or grid lines and how to find places using something like a gazetteer or a coordinate system, and learning the differences between different kinds of atlases and how to use them. So once you've taught that information, and if you have a good geography curriculum, that'll include all of that information. That's one of the reasons why we wrote North Star Geography. Was Unit 1 is just all about geography skills, and you'll get deep into maps and atlases and that sort of thing. So you gotta teach the basics, but you can't stop there. It's not just about spewing out information. The second step is to use maps and atlases regularly, and this takes a little bit of thinking and a little bit of planning. I like the idea of having a dedicated study of geography. At least once, preferably twice, in your 12 years of school. But geography shouldn't just be limited to that 1 or 2 particular courses that you take. Geography needs to be, like I was talking about earlier, woven into all the rest of your topics. You want to make sure that when you're studying history, you've got a historical atlas out and you're looking at maps of that time period. If you're reading a book everything takes place somewhere, find out where that is on the map, trace the journey that they take, note the important places that are mentioned in the book. If you're doing science and you're studying like biology and you're learning about migrations, we'll take out a map and make a map of migrations. For some people, you're going to need to spend a lot of time teaching them, okay, this is how we do this sort of assignment, and you have to get kind of detailed, and you start with an outline map and you do your research and you build it all out. But especially for younger kids, it doesn't have to be that intense. Sometimes all you have to do is take out an atlas and take your finger and say they start here, they go down here, and then they come back up this way. And just that little kinesthetic motion is all you need, especially with the young grades. So the same kind of information is being communicated, but just in a different way, depending on how old they are. So when you're using your maps in all of your study areas, and you're when you think of maps as tools that you use as almost as often as you use a pencil, they're everywhere. They're part of everything. And then you can also just have some fun with atlases. Make atlases part of your reading plan. Buy different kinds of atlases if you have the budget for it. I think we have another hangout where we talked about different kinds of atlases. It was one of my very favorites because there are just dozens and dozens, not just of atlas publishers, but of different kinds of atlases. Historical atlases, thematic atlases, modern reference atlases, ocean atlases, space atlases. We did a whole Google Hangout, so go back and watch that. We should probably put the link in the description or something like that. But yeah, just make digging into atlases just a normal thing that you do. Another thing that's really, really helpful is to make your own maps. And when you're talking about younger kids, start small, make a map of your bedroom or a map of your house or your yard. It doesn't have to be huge and complicated. And as you gain skills, make a map of your neighborhood, look at maps of your city, your state, your country, your continent, maps of the world. Start small so you have that understanding of place and here I am, and then you can zoom out and get the bigger picture from there. With older kids, they have, assuming they have some of these skills under their belt, they can get a lot more detailed and just go crazy with map making. That's essentially what led to Wonder Maps, which is our geography mapping software. When I was in high school, one of the maps that I had to make for our ancient history class was a map of ancient Israel. And this was back when we used overhead transparency sheets. So I had a base map of Israel to work with, and then I had all these overhead transparencies showing how the land changed over time. So this was the division of the 12 tribes of Israel. And then this overlay showed the kingdoms of Saul and David and Solomon. And then this was what Israel was like during the time of Christ. And the act of doing that research and drawing those borders by hand really helped to cement the sense of place and understand how those places impacted those historical events and the people, and my understanding of scripture too, since we were dealing with biblical maps. But just those actions of making sure maps and atlases are used regularly is huge. So you got to teach the basics, you got to use them regularly, and then you have to do some exploration and use some of those big tools that we talked about earlier. If you have a trip coming up, plan it with your students using Google Maps. And it doesn't have to be a long trip. Maybe you just need to plan out, okay, we're running errands this afternoon. We've got 5 places to go. What's the most efficient route to take so that we get to all of these places on time? What are the roads that we're going to be taking? What obstacles do we need to avoid? Is there construction on this road? Is there bad traffic on Route 13 at this time of day? Think through some of those considerations, but use Google Maps to do it. You can have fun with it. Go geocaching, go letterboxing. Geocaching.com and I think letterboxing.com are both really fun geographic games that you can play. And if you've got a smartphone, man, you have got everything you need to just go exploring and have a great time with that. And even if you don't want to leave your own yard, you can plan out a treasure hunt that gives clues in geographic terms. So using compass directions, using landmarks, using headings and bearings, that sort of thing. And these are the kinds of things that if you do wind up getting North Star Geography, these are assignments and there's detailed directions on how to do that right there in the book. Some people might be interested in taking a survival class that talks about wilderness navigation or even celestial navigation, how to get around just using the stars. And those are really fascinating topics. So if you are able to dig into that, that's great. But just using those 3 steps, teach the basics, use them regularly, and go exploring and have fun with them. Make sure that those tools get used so that when you need to use them, the skills are already there. And you may never need to navigate by the sun out in the wilderness, but you will have to figure out the best route to go run errands, or you will have to figure out how you're going to get from your hometown to the family vacation to go visit relatives out west. And that's an opportunity. Make use of it. Those are real things that are going to happen. So you want to get these skills down as soon as you can, really. And while your kids are learning and you're using maps and atlases, they really help give context to all of your other subjects, and especially subjects like history, where you can't just go and see these things on your own. You have to be looking through the lens of history. So having a historical atlas is huge. And if you've got visual learners, that's doubly important. Even kinesthetic and auditory learners are still going to benefit from having maps and atlases out, but your visual ones are going to get twice as much out of it, which is a real nice bonus. So it's not hard. You just have to be intentional about it, and you can really have a lot of fun with it.
It sounds to me, Tyler, like one of the main things you could do to incorporate more geography into your day is just to leave an atlas on the table, and as you're working or reading, just flip it open. Just
Yeah.
having it there would remind you to use it.
Yeah, I mean, we have some children's atlases at home, and we were just on a family vacation, and our oldest daughter packed some books that she wanted to bring, and that atlas made the cut. It was there, and she knew, oh, this is an interesting book. This is something that I want to have with me when I have some reading downtime on vacation. So
I love
I mean,
that.
that made my heart happy.
I'm
That
sure
was
it
the top.
did. I'm sure it did. That's adorable. Yeah. Well, we have a plethora of geography resources at brightideaspress.com. You can go right to the homepage and see our whole geography category of products.
Hmm.
On the blog, you can search the blog for the term geography, and there are lots of blog posts. We have a Pinterest board, actually multiple Pinterest boards devoted to geography. We have done other hangouts that we really have lots and lots of information about geography, and I will try to gather some of those that are specifically related to things we've discussed today and put them in the notes on this YouTube video.
Oh,
So,
thank you.
Tyler, thank you for sharing. Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, I was just thanking you for doing that. If you've
Yeah,
got younger ones, hands-on geography is great because that's really designed for like K through fifth. North Star Geography as a curriculum is geared more for junior high and high school. You can use it for younger ones if you want to go slow and explain a little bit more. But yeah, there's stuff for all ages there, especially Wonder Maps. You can use that all the time.
absolutely. Don't be intimidated by geography,
Mhm.
moms. This is something that you can easily do just with a few minutes a day. Put an atlas on the table, get you a copy of Wonder Maps so you have lovely printable maps that you can write on and color and trace and use for different projects. It's very doable. So thank you for spending this time with us. If you love this video, we hope you give it a thumbs up, maybe share it with someone that you know would enjoy it. And that's going to be the conclusion of our hangout today. Thank you, everybody, again. Bye-bye, Tyler.
Take care.